Thank you, everybody. Welcome to the inaugural and first regular session meeting of BAM Council for the 2022-2026 term. I'm Thomas Thayer. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer and Clerk for BAM, and I call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. Everybody, welcome to the inaugural and first regular session meeting of BAM Council for the 2022-2026 term. I'm Thomas Thayer. Thanks, Megan. At this time, what we're going to do is we're going to do the declarations of office at the podium. So each councillor-elect will verbally recite the declaration and sign, and then retake their seats around the horseshoe. So first, I will call Councillor Ward 1, Emerson, to the podium.
I, Timothy Emerson, have been elected or appointed to the office of councillor in the municipality of BAM, do solemnly promise and declare that I will truthfully, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. I have not and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or improper manner. I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty the King Charles III. And I make this solemn promise and declaration conscientiously, believing it to be true and knowing that it is of the same force and effect as if made under oath.
Sir, you're welcome. Council-elect Ward 2, Dan Froese.
I, Dan Froese, have been elected or appointed to the office of councillor in Ward 2 in the municipality of BAM. I do solemnly promise and declare that I truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. I have not received or will not receive any payment or reward promise thereof for the exercise of this office and in bases, corrupt, or any improper manner. I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I will faithfully and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, and I make a solemn promise and declaration conscientiously believing it to be true and knowledge that it is of the same force and effect as if made under oath.
Sir. Very much. Councillor-elect for Ward 3, Susan Chilcott.
I, Susan Chilcott, have been elected or appointed to the office of councillor in the municipality of BAM. Do solemnly promise and declare that I will truthfully, truly, faithfully, impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or any improper manner. I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III. And I make this solemn promise and declaration conscientiously, believing it to be true and knowing that it is of the same force and effect as if made under oath.
Deputy Mayor-elect Rainey Weisler.
I, Rainey Weisler, having been appointed to the office of Deputy Mayor in the municipality of BAM, do solemnly promise and declare that I will truthfully, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or any improper manner. I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III. And I make this solemn promise and declaration conscientiously believing it to be true and knowing that it is of the same force and effect as if made under oath.
Mayor-elect Ed Ketchba.
I, Ed Ketchba, having been elected to the office of mayor in the municipality of Bayham, do solemnly promise and declare that I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or any improper manner. I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III. And I make this solemn promise and declaration conscientiously believing it to be true and knowing it is of the same force and effect as if made under oath.
Thank you, everybody. As clerk for the municipality of Bayham, I now announce the 2022-2026 council as formally declared. I will open the floor to the new council for any statements at this time.
Any particular order?
Whoever wants to go first.
I will go first. Well, I will go first. Reverse order this time. To those returning, I congratulate you on your election. New councillor, well, this is going to be an exciting and yeah, it's going to be an exciting term. It's going to be a lot to learn, but I'm sure you're up to the challenge. For those who may or may not know, Councillor Emerson and myself, we have a bit of a history of shall we say, municipal experience in the family. And so wondering what our grandfather is probably thinking now, he's got two grandsons serving on the same council. This could be really interesting. I know that the returning council heard me say this 4 years ago. So this is just a refresher for you, for Councillor Emerson. This is for you. You were elected in Ward 1, absolutely, and you are expected to represent their interests. But I would hope that in any deliberation that you are engaging around this table, and this goes for all the rest of council, you do it with the lens of the entire community, or through the lens of the entire community. Yeah, one area does not supersede another area. We are all in this together. So let's keep that in mind. I know that we've had a good working relationship in the past. I expect that working relationship to continue. And I look forward to the next 4 years. I think we have great things to do. We have challenges, but we will overcome them together.
Mayor, well, harken back to my grandfather. I don't think we'll be any different than if he was alive. He would never give us a compliment to face. We always heard you did a good job around the corner.
Right.
So I look forward to the challenge. It's going to be a big learning curve. And if I get any of the procedure or protocols or names wrong for the first few meetings, please forgive me. But it's going to be interesting and I think quite important. Thank you.
I look forward to another 4 years. The last 4 years have been like Tim was saying, a learning curve. They have been, and so the next 4 years should be a breeze since I know everything now. But who knows? Yes, Valerie, thank you very much. No, just looking forward to serving with Tim, missing Val, I'm gonna miss Valerie like crazy, but the rest of the three of you and the rest of council here, it's been good the last 4 years. And a real joy.
Well, everyone knows I bring a script, right? So bear with me. I would like to thank the residents of Bayham for allowing me the opportunity to serve you for another year, or another term, pardon me, as your deputy mayor. This upcoming term represents the fourth election process that I have participated in, and the second as your successful candidate. So this journey has been very difficult and equally rewarding. And it was an honor to serve for the first time with the 2018-2022 term of council. And just when we were getting comfortable in our roles, I think we can all attest to working very hard to learn the processes and procedures. We found ourselves facing the global disruption of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we had to pivot to an online meeting platform with all community and social activities canceled. So we found the next 2 years would prove to be very challenging as we celebrated staff retirements and the arrival of our new CAO and deputy clerk. All in the midst of these transitions, we had to learn to network, collaborate, and grow as a team in a rapidly changing environment. Throughout this time, I launched myself into any opportunity that would allow me to develop and grow in my role with council. And I'm proud to say that I was elected to represent beautiful Bayham on a federal and provincial level. And just this last week was informed that I was chosen once again to represent our area with the PC Women in Politics Board of Directors as well. So these commitments I do not take lightly, and much consideration is given in an effort to best serve our community. I would like to thank my amazing family who throughout the past decade have had to make many sacrifices in order for me to pursue my passion. And we've had to modify our lifestyle many times while I invested my time and energy into upgrading my skills and education, which I continue to do to this day. So without my family's support and encouragement, this would not be possible. And so again, I say thank you, and I strive every day to make you proud. And I love you all very much. So I would like to congratulate the newly elected council for the upcoming 2022-2026 term. We have a lot to be proud of, and we have a lot of work to do. And I look forward to serving with each and every one of you. Thank you.
Wow, I should have went before Rainey. I just want to say thank you to everyone who voted for me, and I look forward to serving you again for another 4 years. I'm looking forward to being with most of the same council. I'm with Tim as well. I know Tim outside of council, and he's a good guy. So I think we're all going to get along well, and I think we're going to do good things. So thank you.
Thank you, council, for your comments. Mr. Mayor, you have one more.
One more comment, and before you take a break. Outgoing Councillor Valerie, would you come forward, please? I'd like to present you with your. You can, I think you can have that on your door.
That would be normal. But thank you.
This is your last chance to control things, so.
Better make it good then, eh?
That's correct.
As clerk for Bayham, at this time, we will recess for 15 minutes until 7:30 p.m., at which time we will reconvene and continue with regular business, and I will formally pass the chair off to the mayor-elect.
I'll take the gavel too.
And yeah, you get all that as well.
Thank you.
7:30, we are going to reconvene council for regular business. First order of business is formal passing of the chair. So as CAO clerk of the municipality of Bayham, I formally pass the chair to Mayor Ed Ketchbaum.
Thank you, Thomas, and it is again a real pleasure to be in this position and to have the opportunity to serve. Let's move right along with our agenda. We have a number of issues to deal with this evening, so I'm going to remind council members of any pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. None disclosed. Are there any items not listed on the agenda?
No items tonight, Mr. Mayor.
All right, moving on with section 4, announcements from council members. Who has announcements? Councilor Chilcott.
Thank you. I just wanted to remind people that the SHF is having a Christmas vendor show on December 3rd from 9 till 2 at the SCC. The Port Burwell Parade is December 3rd at 6 p.m. If you want to be in it, you're to be at the Legion by 5:30 p.m. and anybody can join. Same with the Stratfordville Parade. It starts at 10:30 a.m. on December 10th. They ask that you bring a non-perishable food for the food pantries that are going to go to both Port Burwell and Stratfordville. And if you want to join it, and they're really looking for floats and everything, please be at the SCC for 10 a.m.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes, I have a couple of announcements this evening as well, so I'll just. The Stratfordville Library, in collaboration with the photographers of the Otter Valley, they are hosting a complimentary holiday portraits. That's this Saturday, December the 3rd, from 1 to 4 at the Stratfordville Library. You can register for a free portrait at the library or by calling 519-866-3584. So, and we've also had an anonymous Bayham residents. They have generously sponsored a new sharing pantry that is now located at Coley's Fresh Mart in Stratfordville. So this pantry is very similar to the successful pantry that we found in Port Burwell. So we encourage everyone, if you can, to contribute to this pantry, and we thank the generous donors. You obviously know who you are, so thank you for that. And as it ties into this last announcement, I would just like to remind you that the Stratfordville Hall Foundation is organizing a holiday food drive, and that kicks off today, and that runs through until December the 21st. So donations can be dropped off at Coley's Fresh Mart, and they will be distributed to the two sharing pantries, both in Port Burwell and Stratfordville. Thank you for that.
Any other announcements? Councilor Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tree lighting service here in Stratfordville tomorrow at 6 p.m.
Thank you for that. That's 6:30 or 6 o'clock?
6:30.
6:30. Anything else? 2 for comments.
Just one brief operational announcement, Mr. Mayor. So there will be a slight delay to budget meetings to account for some council availability conflicts. Our capital budget meeting will be scheduled to December the 13th. Operating budget will be January the 18th. We will have something formal on the website shortly to identify this.
All right, thank you. Lots of announcements this evening. Moving on then with section 5 presentations. This evening we have CJDL regarding the sanitary pumping station capacity study. Please.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors, and staff. Pleasure to be. I'm Peter Penner with CJDL, and pleasure to be able to speak with council. I deal with staff very frequently and don't get much contact with council. So Ed Rolson had asked that I do this presentation. I've had a few comments that it's a rather lengthy report that we've brought to you, and what better topics to start off the inaugural meeting with the council than sewage. Megan, would you be able to put on the screen just that, the report or not?
With the way of our functioning hybrid, we can't at the moment, or
No, that's fine. I can run through things here now. It's a lengthy report, and actually I should mention I have Alex Muirhead with me as well this evening. He did a bulk of the data compilation and calculations to put the report together as well. So he's going to keep me in line if I tell you things that I don't quite remember correctly. So he'll keep me in line there.
Peter, just when you're going through a report, just refers to the pages. We've got the
Okay.
report on your laptops.
Okay, I don't want to go through everything here, but there is a lot of different factors that come into play. The sewage system probably crosses a few wards, starts up in Eden, and it's has a collection system there. It pumped with a 4-inch force main down to Stratfordville into a pumping station there. Then it goes a short distance into another one, and then it's pumped again down to Vienna, and then it gets in another pumping station in Vienna and goes down to Port Burwell. So the sewage has had quite a ride by the time it gets down to the treatment plant, and you get some interesting dynamics to work that out as well. The smallest community is at the upstream end, and that's where we have some of the most immediate developments coming up, with some the draft plan submitted on one and one forthcoming shortly on another. And unfortunately, even though it's not a huge subdivision, the 133 lot, the one that's under draft plan control, it does represent like a 25% increase in the size of Eden. So it does make a big influence that we had to look at through the report here. We tried to establish some of the criteria how we're going to go through this, and we're trying to follow with the MOE regulations and be reasonable, not pick the highest end, but we still want factors of safety that it has a level of comfort operating the system, that he's not pushing the limits on everything all the time as well. We have some just on the page 2 of the report, the tables 1, 2, and 3 show some of the existing flow data that was able to provide for us, and the existing connections to the system. So what we wanted to establish is what is a reasonable flow per household, and ultimately look at how many additional households that can be connected, and how to size things for the future as well. Looking at the different communities, this is on table 3, it shows the per capita sewage rate, and it ranges from 170 liters per person per day up to 240. And Eden was actually the highest at 240 liters per capita per day. Why there's such a variation? We try to rationalize and understand these things. Eden is on wells, and Stratfordville is, Vienna's on municipal water. Some theories are that you'll get more water consumption on the municipal water system. It's like an unlimited supply for people, but it didn't really work that way. There's also, you get some leakage into the system, extraneous flows from rains that make into manholes. Might be some connections that happen to have their weeping tile around the house connected and things like that. They're not supposed to, but that is the reality that most municipalities have to deal with. And the heavier ground up in Eden probably does generate a little bit of more infiltration into the system as well. So the 240, we tried to stay conservative. We used the highest rate for looking at all of the systems. New connections, MOE recommends between 225 and 450 liters per capita per day. And we added 15% to what Eden has, and that put us up to 275 liters per day. So it's a little less than half of the MOE range, and we're comfortable with that. It's still a pretty good buffer from what the historic numbers are. So that was a basis to get us going there. Some of the other things that I wanted Alex to look at here was how the existing pumps and force mains are working. the municipality has replaced several of the pumps in the system here recently. And we've got flow numbers from Ed for annual, and we also have pump run times that is measured with the software as well. So we just compared the two and looked at how much actual flow is coming from each of the pumping stations and compared that to what's in the ECA, the environmental compliance approval, and for each of the stations. And I believe all but one of them were actually pumping higher than what the ECA capacity is. So in order to increase capacity with the system, we don't want to pick the easiest ways first. And there's a couple of the stations that are, say, overachievers, are pumping more than what the ECA allows. And we think it would be an easy update just to update the ECA and make an application. I don't know if it'd be just administrative or not. The report would satisfy that. So that for a few of the stations could be something that's done immediately. And that some it's 10, 20, or even 30% more of what it's actually. And the pumps probably are a little more efficient, the newer pumps, than what they were when they were installed 20 years ago. So that's a low cost, easy upgrade. And the next thing we would look at is just replacing the existing pumps with a bigger pump on the same system. And that it's limited, but you can gain more capacity that way. Third option to look at would be to add a balancing or equalization tank. And again, this is another one of these variables we don't have specific data on, but the sewage flow is high in the morning. People get up, have a shower, getting ready to go to work, a lot of water used. And then in the evenings, people use more water. So during the day, and especially overnight, it slows down. So it's kind of a curve. The pumping stations are designed for the peak flow that happens each day. And if you put an equalization tank in, you can basically store a little more in these tanks during the peak flow. And that gives a chance for the pumps to catch up in the middle of the day when the flow is slowed down, or overnight. So those tanks would be sized for that. And that's, again, not terrible expensive. The last resort would be to replace the force mains with a larger force main. And that's from Eden down to Stratfordville, 4.5 kilometers. That's probably would be an option well over $1 million, $1 million to $1.5 million on that. We haven't done detailed calculations for these options yet, but the first area that we looked at was Eden at the top end of the system, and that's the one that we do have the development pressure and the applications coming in. And looking at it's in the range of 7 liters per second that's approved with the ECA right now, and it's actually pumping at 7.7. It's only 0.7 more, but that's 10%. And just making that application alone, that would move us up from I think it was 33 additional units that fall under the 90% range, bringing us up to 44. Those numbers correct? 32 to 44, sorry. That makes 12, that's good. And that again, if you're looking at a big community, it's not a lot, but with the smaller community, that's a fair amount of room there. And one of the other things with all of these systems is ongoing monitoring, and every few years you should be updating the capacity report. We do try to make some conservative estimates in the flows, and hopefully we've overestimated. And if you look at it again a few years, it might buy you a little bit more time. The other thing we got to watch is the time it takes to implement change and improvements. And if you do just a simple pump change within an existing building, it's only a Schedule A environmental assessment, and that's one that doesn't have appeal times. You just have to notify interested parties, basically notify the public and ad in the paper, the website, things like that, and carry on. So it's very straightforward. If you put a tank in, that's a Schedule B, and that takes a little longer. And you can probably do it in 8 to 10 months. It usually should allow about a year for completion of the class Schedule B environmental assessment. And the reason for that is the equalization tank can go in different locations on the project. Ideally, we'd like to just put it right close to the pumping station, and you could put it in as like a large square concrete tank. It can be oversized pipe. In some areas, it might make more sense that you put it on up off another manhole, and it's just when sewage backs up into it, it'll work that way too. So that's probably why a little more effort goes into it. The increased pump size for Eden got complicated. It very quickly went to very large pumps. It's a 16 horsepower now, and to get it 50% increase going from up to, I think it was 11.95. That's with where we hit the pressure limit that we could on the force main. We're bumping it up. Was that like a 75 horsepower pump? So it's going from a 16 to a 75, and it's only gaining you from 7 up to just under 12 liters per second. And again, it's that long, small diameter force main that's just putting a lot of back pressure. And then the only pumps that could generate enough pressure and volume on that was a larger, like a 6-inch pump hooked onto a 4-inch main. And they started looking at the efficiencies, and I think it was down to about a 25% efficiency compared to, you'd like to be, 70 to 80 or so with the pump efficiencies. So because of the higher pressures on that, you'd almost have to go with 2 pumps, and that in series, one after another, and that doesn't fit physically into the chamber. So you'd have to have an online pump that may need to go in a building above ground. So now all of a sudden the pump option has also jumped into a Schedule B class environmental assessment. So for Eden, it would make sense to do an environmental assessment and to compare whether you want to do the pumps compared to the tank. And they're probably going to be similar price. And since you're getting more complicated with the pumps, might even have to go with the tanks as the preferred option there, or could be combined, a pump and a tank as well. But that would be resolved through the environmental assessment to pick the best option, and cost analysis with that as well. We've got a few charts in here. Now, we went through the same process with this with all of the communities, and that small one up in Eden is that's the most immediate, but it is the most challenging one to deal with as well. The capacities of I think we're at 66% capacity right now with the pumps in Eden. And the other ones, you look at them, they don't seem like they're a lot different. It's, you can pick out the numbers in the report here, but they range from 40 to 55%, but they're all on bigger systems. So when Eden only has so few, that a bigger percentage doesn't represent many houses. But when you get down to Vienna, that same, going up 20%, that's a lot of houses. Trying to estimate growth rates is another challenge. We looking at the reports and StatScan reports, it's been in the 4 or 5%, and actually that's last time there was a negative one time as well. So it seems like if you could just estimate for 5%, that would be simple. But these subdivisions are going to bump it up to 25 to 50% growth in Eden very quickly. So it's more number crunching. We're trying to come up with something that looks after things for a number of years too. There's a couple pie charts that we have on here that compare the existing. Is on 23. Okay, so on page 23, we have a graph that shows what the existing conditions are for each of the communities. So the first four, sewage pumping station 1 is in Eden, number 2 and 5 are the ones in Stratfordville, and number 6 is down in Vienna. 7 and 8 are in Port Burwell, but they're not in line with the other ones, so they're handled separately. So every unit we add in Eden has to be added in to each of the downstream ones as well. So the way this chart is set up, it shows a number of existing households that are on the system. So we have 134 in Eden. There's 435 up to the first pumping station in Stratfordville, which includes that 134 that's in Eden. And then the next pumping station at a smaller number, but it brought us up to 499 total, and then 827 in Vienna. The last column we'll talk about later, that's the wastewater treatment plant capacity. We looked at 2 different ways of bringing us up to 90% capacity, like what's unallocated, what's not being used, how many more houses you can build before you have to do an upgrade. If we use the C of A as a certificate of approval from the MOE, we can have only 32 more in Eden. We can have 148 more, including the 32 in Eden, the first pumping station in Stratfordville. The next one, we had 317, and that one was interesting. When we looked at the flows on that one, they were like double what the ECA or the C of A had for Eden. And again, we try to rationalize that, and there's some graphs in here that show the slope of the ground in the appendice here. So we mapped the profile heading down Highway 19 for each of the pumping stations. And it looks like on that lower pumping station, or the downstream one, the south end of Stratfordville, it pumps uphill a little bit, and then it's a long downhill all the way into Vienna. So what is most likely happening there is after the pump shut off, that line continues to drain. And it looks like about 75–80%, maybe more than that, of the line drains on its own. So when the pumps start up again, it just has that short 20% of its section. I think it was only 300 meters that was full of sewage. So the pump looks like a real overperformer, but it's only pushing 300 meters of sewage instead of several kilometers worth. So that's our best explanation of what's happened there. So this shows how many we could have if we maxed out the upstream all the time. So it was always if we provided as much service as we could in as many houses as possible in Eden, and that would limit what can go in Stratfordville. Development doesn't always follow that pattern either. So these numbers are going to jump around to where the applications actually come in. Eden probably will max out. That one's reasonable, but how quickly the Stratfordville and Vienna maxes out is yet to be determined. There's a lot of development land available for both of those. The third chart we had here, page 25, is if we did, I mentioned that a lot of the pumping stations were operating at a higher level than what the certificate of approval indicated. So if we allowed the flow rates to go up to 90% of the actual pumping rates, and that would just require that application to MOE to use the higher rates, it gave considerable more capacity on a lot of them. So again, it seems like a good idea. We didn't look at the 2 small pumping stations at the east end of Stratfordville in this report. We were just looking at all the online ones, and there's some development proposed. I think it's just right on Heritage Line there, some lots, and it looks like that can be handled as well. But again, that certificate of approval should probably be updated for that one as well. So just had Alex look at that today. The last column we had on these charts was the wastewater treatment plant. And that one, we didn't, we wanted to look at the capacity on that. It's operating at, was it 66%, 68% capacity? And that's 1,183 units or houses that are connected to that. And we can have 393, just under 400 additional units that it can handle treatment for. So through any of the communities, we've shown 66 and 65, like basically just an even amount for each. And that's just to fill the space. Like it can be divided up however you want, and it'll be, I know the council has been looking at, and staff has been working on a capacity allocation bylaw, and you may want to hold capacity that you don't want, Stratfordville to use up all the capacity, and then there's no development in the other ones until you catch up. So the number and how that gets allocated will probably be different than shown there, but that's just showing an even distribution of that. The bottom line is you have about 393 total there. So the two pumping stations in Port Burwell, there's number 7 is a smaller one towards the south end. Both of them are on the east side of the Otter Creek, and the smaller one just pumps into the bigger one, and then it takes them both across the bridge there. So there's not a whole lot of capacity left in the smaller one, but there's also no development space hardly. There'll be some redevelopment that happens, so that doesn't look like an issue there. And the other one was only in the 50-60% range in Port Burwell as well. Some of the maps here that we have for each of the communities, and they're all color coded on development area that's available yet. And it looks like only 2 of the pumping stations will require eventually force main upgrades to handle the full build out of the settlement area. So the one in Eden is one of them. And again, we can probably push that off a little ways yet with some other upgrades. But the one in Vienna ultimately is going to need a bigger force main as well. That's a 250 10-inch diameter main that takes it down to Burwell right now. So there's a lot of room in it yet. It's not going to run out right away, but it's still, there's also a big development area in Vienna that it could be years, or if the development we've had the last couple of years throughout the country continues at that rate, then it would potentially fill it up a lot quicker than anybody expects. So we tried not to include development lands within regulation limits of the Conservation Authority, and again, those probably can, some places they'll probably relent and allow some developments, others are absolutely no-go. So it's another variable that is hard to predict entirely where it's going to go. Another thing we added in here, the Premier Ford recently announced that some changes to promote development, and they're allowing up to 3 residential units where there's 1 house now. So potentially somebody in the basement apartment and maybe another separate unit out back. And those also count for sewage flows. It probably won't be as high as a regular house. And we don't know how much uptake there's going to be on that. And I don't know if you've seen stuff for that already, Margaret, or yeah. So making allowance for that, there are changes in the rules as you go. That why you have to continue to do the upgrades on that. So I think that generally covers the way we looked at it. So it looks like most of the pumping stations are good for a period of time. The sewage treatment plant, it takes a long time to get that going. We're just below 70%. And we've looked at allocation up to 90%, but before you get to 90%, you need to get the environmental assessment going on that. And I'm not sure that'll be a B or a C for the upgrades there. But getting that going, even if you don't do all the work, having the plan together on how that's going to be expanded and getting an idea of the costs, getting the costs of all of these things established so it can be included in your development charges as well. It's obviously these are being driven by development, and the development should be paying for these. So and again, when it's spread with each house so much, it can cover the cost fairly reasonably, actually. So that's just something that's in each of the recommendations, is establish the cost so the development charges can be established. I think I had to leave time for questions.
I'm looking for any questions from council. I have a few. Okay, I'll let you go first, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question on you mentioned the environmental assessment.
Yes.
What kind of turnaround time would that take?
It's a public process that can get held up with things. It seems like one of the assessments that you would do that's not going to get any comments, to tell you the truth, though. It probably 8 to 10 months would be the quickest turnaround on it. Usually they'll allow a year for that. The sewage treatment plant might take a little longer than the ones for the pumping stations.
Of course, to clarify the environmental assessment, you're talking about Class B.
Yes.
That's for what you call it, not a surge tank, but
Equalization tank.
equalization.
Yes. So that, yeah, it's not a real controversial topic, so it should go without too much challenge from the public, really.
But if we were to increase pump capacity in the sump or well, or whatever you wish to call it, or pit, that's under Class A, and we're already covered. Requirement public.
As long as you can keep the pumps right in there. And I didn't mention this, a couple other things when you change a pump, that in some respects is easy. Then you have to look at the electrical supply to it. There's backup generators for these. They can probably handle a little bit bigger pump, and I didn't have all that information to know how they're sized for each individual one. And so, but if we were going to go from 16 horsepower to a 70 horsepower pump, or 225 in series, that it probably would need an upgraded backup generator for the Eden one anyways. So
Okay, my understanding then, just listening to the presentation, having read it, that one of the first recommendations though would be an upgrade of the CFA.
yes, that's and again, I'd probably have to talk to the MOE to see if they could do it as just an administrative one or not. They'll probably make us fill out their new simplified 50-page application form. But the work that's been summarized in the report is probably enough to justify the increase, and we might have to present it a little differently as a design brief to them, but I would do that. I think they're all under the same ECA now anyway, so you could deal with them all in the same application. The application, if it's administrative, it's only $200. If they deem it as one that they have to review more, then it would probably be, I think it's only $1,100 or something for the application fee, and then hopefully only a few $1,000s to go through compiling all the information.
Right. Okay, that addresses some of the level of difficulty, perhaps the cost involved. If I understand correctly, we already exceed our certificate of approval. Is that going to be a problem?
No, you update them all the time. They have all the sewers and pumping stations and everything. They used to all be individual. Now they're all brought in under one. So each time a developer wants to add a street, extend one manhole run. It's an update to the ECA, so it's nothing unusual.
Thank you. Great. Anything else? Yes, Councilor Emerson.
Through this mayor, at present rate, the growth of new houses. What would you think be the estimated time before we run out of capacity at Fort Grove? Would that match the time to get approvals and everything in place to not run out of space before we run out of time? That's basically.
Yeah, I think you're in good shape yet. And again, the market changes so quickly. The last 2 months, as soon as they started increasing the interest rates significantly, the housing market cooled. And there's still some moving ahead. It hasn't completely dried up yet, but it's nothing like the rate that it was previously. You've got I think we were at 68%, and you should get it started once you get up to 80% anyways, start the environmental assessment process. So, but it can take a few years to do that. If you stayed at a 5% growth rate, you're at 1,200 houses approximately now, 60 per year. 6 years, 360 would take us past the 80 mark. So like I'd say within 5 years it should be started, and even starting it a little bit earlier is not a terrible thing either, because like you don't have to go right to construction. And I think you got 10 years of time that an ECA is good for once you do it. So good. Starting it within a couple of years should be fine for the treatment plant.
Anything else?
Just an interesting point. It appears, just follows the councillor's comments. If we go the administrative route, update the C of A to recognize the pump operating flow, it looks like, and Ed, Pete, you can tell me if I'm off base on this. It looks like outside of, immediate needs of an equalization tank or some other manner of some other retrofit at the pump station to provide short-term capacity. The next bottleneck in the system is the wastewater treatment plant.
That's probably going to be it, yes. Another thing that we looked at, we looked at what the roughness coefficient was working out to in the force mains. When they're designed, the MOE requires us to use a roughness coefficient of 130, whatever that means. And you look at it over a range of 120 to 140, 130 being basically the average. And PVC pipe that these force mains is very smooth wall pipe. The manufacturer tells you to use 150. Higher number is smoother, lower number is rougher. And when I saw that most of the pumps were putting out a little higher productivity, I thought that the roughness must be a smoother, or like a higher number, but smoother, working better. But when we did the calculations on it, a lot of them were worse, they're rougher than what the new pipe would be. And we talked to Ed about that, and he has had some issues with scaling from the hard water developing inside some of the force mains. And in the low point in the system, where it crosses, I think it was the Black Bridge there on Highway 19, they have had to put something in there to take some of the scale that accumulates in the low point there out. And I think so he's got some maintenance proposed to do some swabbing in the mains in the budget for next year as well. And hopefully that'll help bring those back to smoother inside diameter. And again, every system, every water, they all act differently. So how effective swabbing is not known until you do that. So the maintenance on the system is important to keep things working well. And so you may gain a little bit more capacity out of that maintenance happening as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything else? Thank you for the report. It's sobering. Again, it just identifies another challenge out there. If we wish to grow, it's just one of those pieces that we have to address. But it's good to know what is going in. And it is a complex interconnected system. And it's something that thank you for that. Thank you. All right, we have a motion that reads the presentation from CJDL regarding sanitary pumping station capacity study to receive for information. Need a mover and second. Councilor Phillips will move, Councilor Chilcott will second. All in favor? That's carried. Moving on with section 7, adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting. We had the regular council meeting held November the 3rd, 2022. Thomas, any additions to that or amendments?
Just a brief amendment. We wanted to note under the other business section that our manager of capital projects did make comment about some comments on community social media. The individual did clarify. So we will be including a note that those comments were made under other business, but council may adopt the minutes as amended.
All right. So the motion reads that the minutes from the regular council meeting held on November the 3rd, 2022 be approved as amended. Mover and second. Deputy Mayor Weisler and Councilor Chilcott will second. All in favor? Carried. Moving down to section 11. Physical services, emergency services, 11.1 correspondence, and 11.1.2 requiring action. We have correspondence from New Hope Baptist Church regarding the request. Mention it. My bad. Yes. Then let's back up to section 9, open forum. We have a comment period. Who's up for the open mic? Valerie.
Yes, thank you. I would like to take this time to congratulate the newly elected and acclaimed municipality of Bayham council members for 2022-2026. Congratulations to Mayor Ed Ketchupah, Deputy Mayor Rainey Weisler, Ward 1, Tim Emerson, Ward 2, Dan Froese, and Ward 3, Susan Chilcott. Thank you for standing to represent the municipality of Bayham constituents. And a thank you to those constituents that exercised their vote. And all along the way right now, the provincial government is giving you a bit of a headache with their Bill 23. Your jobs will be difficult. And on that note, I might add that the Association of Municipalities say the changes could leave municipalities short $5 billion and see the taxpayers footing the bill, either in the form of higher property taxes or service cuts. And there is nothing in that bill that would guarantee improved housing affordability. That's ridiculous. That's my opinion. And with the most controversial aspect being developer fees, freezing, exempting, or eliminating them altogether. One would ask if the developers will pass those savings on to the home buyer. Not that long ago, there were homes on Victoria Street where I live in Port Burwell that had permanent residents. This is kind of a bit backwards, but anyways, that's me. I can count 13 homes on Victoria Street that are no longer permanent housing. That is not how you build a community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Now let's move on with section 11, physical services and emergency services. We left off at item A, New Hope Baptist Church regarding a request for reflectors. Just taking that one. Does anyone on staff have any comment to offer on that? First of all, I believe it's a provincial highway. It's beyond our, I don't believe it's our jurisdiction.
If the reflectors are on Highway 3, then they are outside our jurisdiction. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. If I'm reading this correctly, they're looking for reflectors on where exactly? Corner of number 3 and Bayham Drive going east. That's not on our jurisdiction. Would I make a recommendation if council so chooses to forward this on to
You can do that, Mr. Mayor.
so if that's council's wish. Better, for a seconder to do so. You have a comment? Or-
I have a question, if I may, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to stop, like you did at the corner of Carson and Elliott, can you just confirm, was that something that we did as a municipality? In this letter, it says that we've put reflectors up in other areas.
See Steve shaking his head, so I would infer from that we didn't do that.
No, through your worship, that was all. Through your worship, all the reflectors last year, those were 2019, those were done by the MTO. The ministry has Eden Line last year, if you remember, there's some reflectors, some sign work done on that intersection, all those intersections. Back to road allowances on the responsibility of the MTO. So, yeah, correspondence would be best to go to them. This was the first I heard of this.
Okay. So of course, the recommendation is to receive for information, but I'm suggesting that if council wishes to take action on this, you forward the correspondence to MPO. Okay, can you draft a motion accordingly?
Yes, that would be the correspondence from New Hope Baptist Church regarding the request for reflector to receive for information, and that the municipality of Bayham forward the correspondence to the MTO.
Okay, anyone interested in moving that? Councilor Chilcott will move, Deputy Mayor Weisler will second, all in favor of that? That's great. Moving on with section 12, Development Services, Sustainability and Conservation, 12.1 correspondence. And 12.1.1 to receive for information. Item A, notice of public meeting regarding the proposed revised official plan and zoning bylaw amendment. M&R Glen, care of Very Wade Homes, Inc. And item B, notice of public meeting regarding proposed draft plan of subdivision application, Vienna Ridge, 34T-VA 2201. Does anyone have any questions or concerns with these items of correspondence? Seeing none, then the motion would read that items 12.1.1A and B be received for information. The mover and seconder for that. Councillor Emerson will move and Councillor Froese will second. All in favor? It's carried. Section 13, Finance and Administration, 13.1 correspondence, and 13.11 to receive for information. We have item A, Southwestern Public Health regarding the medical officer recommends masking indoors. Item B, Long Point Region Conservation Authority regarding Board of Directors meeting minutes of October 5th, 2022. Item C, Long Point Region Conservation Authority regarding the 2023 draft budget. Item D, Watson Associates regarding Bill 23. Item E, GoVax COVID-19 vaccine clinic for December 14th and the 21st, Vienna Lions Community Center. Item F, Elgin County Christmas listings. Item G, Elgin County regarding request for a traffic study. Item H, Township Warwick regarding the CN rail contribution requirements. Item I, Dorian Township regarding Omafra Ontario Wildlife Damage Compensation Program and benefit of fee. Does anyone have any of these items correspondence they wish to make comment on, draw attention to, have questions on? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Perhaps a question for staff on item D, Watson and Associates. So a lot of confusion and assumptions, but now that the bill has received royal assent, I wonder if you could just talk to us on a high level of when we can expect the updates that we discussed at our last meeting. I know that you have a report that will likely be coming, talking about some of the impacts to Bill 23. So I just wondered if you could make a couple comments on that.
Sure. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through the mayor to yourself and the rest of council. So yes, at the November 3rd meeting, direction was given if the bill received royal assent, that the report would come forward on BAM specific impacts. Now that we have that in place, we're going to be reaching out to IBI and Watson and Associates for some of those impacts. High level, the report is going to focus on impacts to the planning processes and impacts regarding development charges. I expect there's going to be some information there, very much tabletop about how the bill would impact our development charges received, since one of the criteria is that any development charge bylaw passed after now it's January 1st of 2022 has to be phased in, so we can no longer with the 100% of the DC upfront, it's 80%. So we effectively lose about $3,000 per home. That's going to impact long-term capital planning. And there is also a little bit of, I guess, confusion out there or vagarity about how one of the provisions around development charge reserve funds applies. That is that there is a requirement that 60% in a given year of the funds in the development charge reserve fund be allocated towards short-term projects. And that is something that runs counter to prudent long-term capital planning, particularly if we have a slow development year, that we're allocating funds, essentially spending for the sake of spending, which isn't prudent financial planning. So we're sort of looking at it from planning and development charge standpoint, first and foremost. Mark, do you have any comment on when IBI might be able to prepare something like that, or are we looking like January, early February for something from your side?
To mayor and council, I would probably say it'll be New Year before all the details can be digested and put into a report that will be a comprehensive document that we can fully understand.
Just a question on that for timing, or would it be beneficial if we actually had it? If we had a set of regulations to look at, they're not even available. Piece of legislation.
I don't believe there's anything that's really comprehensive that's available. There's a lot of misunderstandings out there and a lot of misinformation. I think we need the professionals to provide us with their interpretations so that we can understand it in our abilities as well.
I would agree with that. Looking at the Municipal World Daily that comes out, the article today, which was talking about the city of Toronto mayor or Minister Clark promising funds for that. So again, there is no detail, there's nothing definitive here to, it's all speculative. So I think it is going to be a huge challenge for us to comprehend what's coming down the pipe until we can have some facts before us.
One more comment, Mr. Mayor, stemming from the discussion around the sanitary report. Obviously, we know that coming down the pipe in the short term and the medium term, we're going to be looking at capital improvements to the sanitary system. But we already do have a water and wastewater DC in place. And, you know, in the change to these capital improvements, the costs around them are going to change depending on the amount of money we bring forward with DCs. The money's going to have to come from somewhere. And if we're having a clawback on development charges, the only other logical place that the money can come from outside of, funding through grants is levy supported. So it's not, developers that would be, paying into the capital upgrades in the same manner that they otherwise would have if Bill 23 wasn't adopted. It's going to be levy supported, which is, could end up being higher taxes. So there is going to be that impact as well. And that will be covered in a report that comes forward.
Thank you, Glenn. Any other piece of correspondence?
This is, Mr. Mayor, does that at this point talk about the budget for long?
Absolutely.
I think that we've been really prudent on keeping our costs down and increases, but it's kind of like just the municipal levy, just for operating is 21-22%. And it's kind of hidden because there's no capital expenditures. So my concern is like coming down the road, if at some point they bring capital expenditures back over 2 years, it might be like a 30% increase in the levy. It just seems excessive. to me. And the budget actually seems like some lines in there that aren't really clear or a little excessive. So I don't know if we can have an impact on that, but you know, that just seems like a big jump.
I would concur with that, Counselor. When you look at their financials, the draft consolidated operating budget, they're looking at 2022, well, September 30th year to date, but forecasting a current surplus of 1.104 million. And looking for a 6% overall increase for municipality. I'm kind of curious where the proposed spending is for. It's not clear to me within this budget of what the increased allocation is. I would propose for council to consider correspond back to the LPRCA requesting clarification on this budget.
You can't really use COVID as an excuse because it's even higher if you go to pre-COVID, the increase.
Understood. I'm just thinking a little clarity would help.
Yeah.
Try to give us some better understanding, rather than us just eating the cost and say, oh, well, here we go. No, I think they're going to work for this one. Yeah, I think a little pushbacks.
Just to clarify, in light of some of the questions around where the budget impacts were coming from, my understanding with LPRCA is that a lot of the increases are tied to either staffing resources or to consulting or purchasing services. So that's my understanding. So when you go through, you know, whether it's watershed planning or healthy watershed services, particularly when it comes to conservation parks management, as they continue to open up their conservation areas, there is a substantial impact in those particular budget lines around human resources. So hopefully that provides council a little bit of insight. That's the information that I have to share.
Mr. Mayor, that's true, except that it's even higher if you consider the pre-COVID years. So how come it's double from before COVID set? Before even COVID set in, if you look at some of those lines, it doesn't correlate with COVID at all.
Unfortunately, all I see is from 2020. I've got 2019 data in front of me. And I understand what you're getting at, and I understand the explanation that staff are offering. I still think it's worthwhile just let's ask for clarification. Just a simple letter. This is why this is put before us, so we have an opportunity to offer comment back.
Like even ask for 2019 numbers or something, so it's comparative.
We-
Whatever COVID started, I don't even know anymore. 2020. Okay.
We probably have that back in our records in 2019. But I'm thinking again, let's exercise our right and ask for clarity. Okay, so that's my recommendation. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor, and I would support that, just pointing out that in the body of the report, it says we have only till the December the 13th to provide comment, so we would want to probably get that out. Mhm.
Any other items on this list of correspondence that anyone wishes to make comment on? I would note that item G, Elgin County has processed a request for traffic study on hold. Okay, and that was correspondence coming back. And I don't see anything else here. Of course, no. I'm sympathetic to the township of Warwick regarding the railway contribution requirements. Uh, Nothing new.
Can I make a comment about the traffic report, please?
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there seems to be some doubtings and I don't know how expensive it is to run that, but the concern, I guess, is mostly from summer months and everything just on Fulton. I understand the side streets. But, there is some real doubts and concerns about the timing of that, traffic study. So would it be possible to, do it again in, I don't know, July or something?
Let's refer for some advice from perhaps our public works staff. Do you got any input on that? What do you, you did a concurrent study.
Yes, through your worship. My study, I wasn't sure what time frame the county was gonna put it, so I put our same up. I did a 7-day study. I waited for, because I have older studies that are through the summer. And one of the big complaint was the bus traffic with the kids. So we wanted to provide, and when I talked to the county, we wanted to make sure that the buses were included in that study, so. There's a lot of farm traffic up and down that road in the summertime. There's no doubt that, that may have not been in that. But previous studies that were done are not necessarily studies as just average daily traffic counts. Everything's been throughout the years, pretty standard. They did come up, mine and the one I did with the counties pretty much were level. Mine were done a month before, 3 weeks before. And the counties was shortly after. They actually kind of overlapped a little bit there, but the actual study that I did was, about 3. So, definitely, this summer, I will be conducting the whole municipality. And last time we did do some of the county roads just to make sure they were covered off. The county will also be doing their traffic study. So absolutely, if maybe this summer we'll hit that, in the July peak time.
So you're spirit, you think it's probably a non-issue then, like from a past experience and stuff?
Like traffic wise, we will not, I do believe we won't see a big influence towards what the county was looking at for additional signage. There's a slot that they go through in their TAC books that you need this much traffic for this type of signing. You need this speed for sight distance that's coming down the hill. So those are the things that they were looking at, is talking to the county engineers. They don't think we'll see that yet. Growth will tell time, but with any numbers in the past, we're not even close to what they're looking for. We're still quite a ways away from it.
If these next in the future, can you add Plank and Indiana? Because I know for a fact they come through there way too fast. So, and there's park and there's a bit of library and there's real concern about safety. And I would just like that community safety zone from bridge to bridge.
I think move, and I haven't heard too much about it. There was some talk at the county level about a possible community safety zone through Vienna. I haven't heard anything further on that. I don't know if Mr. Mayor knew anything further. Obviously, the county's still looking at it. They did ask me as well, and I said the complaints have been constant. Deputy Mayor and myself have been dealing with it quite a while. There's no doubt. Yeah. So it's not a bad idea.
Just to add to it, we are still waiting on the publication of the master traffic plan or traffic master plan. And perhaps that'll be one of the things that are identified. We've got various items of concern around BAM, but I hope that they'll be addressed. It's interesting. We also got a resident who's quite concerned about an issue that's at Powell High. I'm the one that gets tapped for it. That's fine.
Yeah, that's correct. I know those areas were brought up. There's a few areas through BAM that were brought up in this master transportation study. So we're all looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with that.
Council Frozen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll just speak from the view of the Police Services Board.
Sure.
And then speeding, I brought it up, it was brought up, we sent a letter from this horseshoe. And so the police services board is hands off when it comes to signage. That's up to the municipality and the county. But I did ask and I proposed those flashing signs that show your speed as you go into a community. And have proven to be quite effective to slow people down. So the deal is the community needs to raise $8,000 per sign. And then they do put them up and they do move them around. And there's no promise that they will stay in Mayhem. Well, Mayhem needs to come up with the money. So however many we want.
That's right.
So they were different service communities that service clubs in Mayhem could come up with money that we could allocate money out of some form of budget, but that is the result of a discussion at police services.
Well, it's an interesting concept. That certainly is. And the other caveat to add into it is majority of the complaints that we're receiving are on county roads. Just a jurisdictional thing.
Mhm. That's correct.
So, but would you be satisfied, Counselor, if through what the manager of public works is suggesting that it is going to be ongoing, they're going to be keeping a look at it. So we've got other pieces of information coming, the master plan, as well as he's going to take a look at various roads in the summer.
That would be satisfying to me. I know that there's quite a few people that are contacting me about the issue. Okay, and so it is an issue, and as long as it doesn't get to the side.
Okay. Sounds good. Yes, ma'am. All right then, Thomas, we got a bit of an amended motion here.
Mr. Mayor, yes, we can do a motion, just let me pull up the agenda here. We've got that items 13.1.1 A through I be received for information. And that correspondence be sent to Long Point Region Conservation Authority pertaining to item 13.1.1 C, requesting clarification on the nature of the expenditure increases and impacts to the 2023 draft consolidated operating budget.
Okay. Councilor Emerson. The seconder. Deputy Mayor Weiser. All in favor of that? That's carried. Thank you. Good discussion on that. 13.12, item A, Ken Andrews, Gravel Hall Foundation regarding the community outdoor skating rink. Andrews is present this evening. Does anyone wish to? The correspondence has been before you. Does anyone wish to speak to it?
Really briefly, Mr. Mayor, this is very similar to the request that came forward around this time last year. They do a community skating rink at either their cost or the cost of community donations. Fire department floods the rink for them, which they did last year. So the request before council is no different than what was considered last year when council approved it. So with that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you for that. Any questions for staff? I have one, as a similar request come from more rural area regarding the up around the ball band for a skating rink.
Mr. Mayor, through to council, I am not aware of a request coming out of Burlington.
The reason I ask is I attended the fire hall a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about moving forward and having a skating rink down there as well. Do we need to preempt it, and if we're going to get approval of this one, approve of that one, or do we wait for that request?
My recommendation would be to wait for the nature of the request to come in. We do require these requests and council approval formally, but it does help us from a liability perspective. So
Agreed. Okay, that was the advice I gave them as well, but that's fine. Any other questions on this? It is a worthy cause, done entirely by volunteers. They maintain it, they put it together, they take it down. That's good for kids. Yes. Perfect. Moved by Councilor Froze, seconded by Deputy Mayor Weisler. This is correspondence from Ken Andrews regarding the community outdoor skating rink be received for information. All in favor? That's carried. 13.2, reports to council, report CAO 6522 by Thomas Thayer, CAO clerk, regarding transfer of a portion of Clark Road. That's what it was.
It should be, I do have, it should be to approve the placement of the outdoor rink for the 2022-2023 season.
Well. Shall we redo that?
Good.
You're all good?
Yep.
Are you good with the amended motion?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now we'll move on with the CAO 6522.
Sounds good, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. Through you to council. This report deals with the I would ask the individuals in the gallery, please. Thank you. So this report deals with transfer of a portion of Clark Road. So the municipality does historically maintain Clark Road, runs between Tunnel Line and Lakeshore Line. In November 2022, the municipality was advised that a portion of Clark Road between Tunnel and Glen Erie remains in private ownership. And this was discovered during a title search conducted during a private sale of land. The law firm acting for the private landowner advised us, requested the municipality action necessary documents to correct the title and assume the lands. And the landowners would then deed the lands to BAM for BAM to formally assume. The section of land is noted that the attached art plan is as part of one. And this is being handled as a housekeeping matter. I do gather that this was done twice before in 2019, as there were other sections of Clark Road that had not been deeded properly to the municipality. So with that, I am available for questions. This request did come forward through Mark. She is also available. And the recommendation is to authorize the clerk or the clerk and mayor to execute the necessary documents for the transfer.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Seeing none, the motion reads a report CAO 6522 regarding transfer of a portion of Clark Road be received for information. And that the clerk and mayor execute the required documentation to transfer the identified portion of Clark Road into municipal ownership. Third second. Councilor Froze and Councilor Chilcott will second. All in favor? That's carried. No bylaws this evening, no unfinished business. There's no other business. Well, there is other business. Item A, March 11, 2020, Museums BAM Board Minutes. Everyone had opportunity to peruse them. Right, any questions regarding the museum's BAMs? Seeing none. The motion reads that the March 11th, 2020 Museums BAM Board Minutes be received for information. Over a second, please. Councilor Froze. Move. Chilcott will second. All in favor? That's carried. Which brings us to 16.1, an in-camera session. So before we take a short break, we have a mover and seconder for the following, that council do now rise to enter into an in-camera session at 8:53 p.m. What is this setting these times in here? I hope so. 8:44 p.m. to discuss a confidential report regarding labor relations, employee negotiations, and confidential report regarding labor relations, employee negotiations. Mover and seconder, please. Councilor Froze and Deputy Mayor Weisler. All in favor? Carry. We will now